Welcome to another conversation with Chris. Today I have Matthew Dunstan with me, and I'm actually really thrilled to be sharing a little bit of Matthew's experience of Balance Central, and also just what it is he's been able to achieve in the last, well, let's say 12 months.
Sure.
So, Matthew, please share what it is you do in the world, who you are, and what you're most passionate about.
Okay. So that's not a short answer, but I guess the postcard version is by day. My clients ask me to help them work out where they're going with their business and how do they get there. It's a little bit of vision, and then plans and strategies. So that's the textbook explanation. In life, though, I'm a very kind of keen sailor, and I think of it as navigation for with my clients a little bit. So my purpose in the world, I guess, do any of us really know our full purpose?
Well, that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
It is. So we can get back to the purpose later.
Sure. But I like to help people get a little bit of clarity on what they're trying to accomplish, and then come up with a plan on how they're going to do that. Sometimes that's a conversation about work, and just as often it's a conversation about life.
Okay, so now we met probably 3 or 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and at the time you had your own business, and
Yep.
it was at a networking function that we met.
Yes.
So we kind of touched base periodically over that time in the last few years, but specifically when I released Unlock Your Power,
Yeah.
what was it that you went, I'd like to have a closer look at that?
So we've spoken about this obviously a number of times. I'm sure everyone watching this will relate to those times in life when things are going really smoothly. It doesn't mean that everything's great, but kind of things just kind of progressing with a natural rhythm. And then there are times when it's not. And I had noticed that things just weren't clicking that should have. I was doing the right things, and I was spending my time in the right places, and I was doing all of the must-dos, but kind of the results weren't there. And I was feeling that primarily at the time, kind of in business, so knocking on a lot of doors, trying to kind of get in and meet with a lot of people, and just really get things moving.
So you were
my practice.
So you were really seeing it coming through the business rather than personal life. Would that be a fair observation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very much so. And so we got to talking, and
we often do.
And and I guess through our prior experience, where maybe I'd had that same feeling of almost getting in my own way a bit, but on more personal things, I thought, okay, no, we need to just bring things into alignment so that it can all just flow a bit more naturally. So that's how we got into this phase of working together.
Cool, awesome. So Unlock Your Power. Really, how was that process for you? Because just to let you know, this process goes for 6 to 9 months and then some. So it's not an easy question for me to ask or for you to answer, but what is it that you noticed throughout those months that we were working through Unlock Your Power?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I guess, every time we had a session together, something would shift. And in fact, what we found is that even booking in a session, things would start to shift in advance a little bit. So that
a little bit. No, this is how it would go. We would book in a session, and then Matthew would turn up, and then he'd go, "You know what happened last night?"
Yeah.
And it'd be on.
Yeah. And interestingly, so that would happen more often and more easily and in more profound ways as we got further into the process. It was almost like, kind of everything that we were doing would start to shift in anticipation of what, was next. Yeah, definitely. So, but after each one, things would shift. I would notice that life was different. I was different. My interactions with people were different. And, I love serendipity, and I see it everywhere. And it was those serendipitous, kind of moments would turn up and you go, oh, look at that. I kind of said that I would like this, or I prefer it if things were happening like this, and ta-da! Sometimes often in unexpected ways. But
that's the nature of unconscious work, isn't it, though, is the unexpected. Because I think we focus on the conscious expectation.
Yeah. And I guess, one of the things that I learned through the process is not to have really fixed views and ideas about what it's going to be like after. So, for example, one of the things that very early on in the process that we were talking about and that I sort of put out there was I was saying, I'd really love to work more in a vibrant, creative environment. Lots of positive and creative things around me. And at the time, I thought, does that mean that I'm going to change teams or change jobs, or is it going to be big wholesale changes? And Chris and I were on the phone having a chat, kind of as a part of our debrief from one of the sessions. And I said, oh yeah, I'm in Melbourne and I'm really enjoying it because I'm working on this project and it's a really fun bunch of people. In fact, we were, up late last night and on the whiteboard and it's like really energetic. And then the penny dropped and went, oh, look at that. That's exactly what I was asking for. I just didn't realise that it was going to turn up like that. Or actually that I already had one foot in it and I didn't realise what it was.
And I think that's what I find a lot is we can be living a particular thing, but we've kind of closed our vision to what we're already doing. So we kind of let it pass us by.
Yeah.
So we can go, oh yeah, well I'm going to Melbourne, I've got this job to do,
yes.
And it could be a that, and it's like, oh yeah. But when you were really looking for something creative and a creative team that could hear you, suddenly you could be open to it.
Yeah. Well, and just being open to, that's a really good phrase actually, because being open to, kind of these changes or these gifts, in whatever way that they appear, I think is crucial. Maybe part of the process is just helping us open our eyes to it a little bit.
Well, that is that is one of the aims, and it's less about opening our eyes, but I guess allowing more to appear. So our eyes can be just as open, but we see things a little differently. So the meaning for a circumstance can change.
Yeah.
So we can be frustrated in working where you're working, but it's about being able to see beyond what you've already got in front of you in an expanded way. So you go, well, I'm still frustrated there, but look, now I've got these other opportunities.
Yeah.
So I want to dig a little bit, because you've talked a little bit about work, but I want to talk a little bit about personal, just to bring it out a little.
Yeah.
What surprised you from a more personal perspective?
Well, there was a recurring theme through all of it, which is, I might have been looking at a particular situation or something, kind of in my personal life that was frustrating me. And the thing that surprised me often, unpleasantly, was actually it was about me rather than about that other person or that other thing. and
And that's not always comfortable.
No, but you've got to you've just got to embark on the journey, right? And it is what it is.
And I am always at the other end of the phone,
yes.
So you can always ring when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So that was a surprise,
Okay.
like in the earlier phases. Later on, it was, and of course, actually, that's about this thing that I'm talking about is really more about me than it is about something else.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't. I wasn't really sure what to expect in a lot of ways, how it was going to play out, but it's actually changed, I guess, my perspective on who I am and what I bring to the table.
I'd love you to share the story that you shared with me probably 3 or 4 months ago, and you talked about always being the prepared Boy Scout.
Yeah, sure. So this was a very profound life intersection
I
for
think
me.
so, yeah.
So Chris had almost given me some homework. She'd said, we're going to book in another session, but we're not going to do it until you get back from holidays, because that feels like the right sort of timing. That particular balance was, I'm going to get the word wrong, but the word surrender comes to mind.
Oh, yes, it was the
Acceptance.
integration
Yeah, okay.
balance, yeah.
Okay. And so, I guess maybe a little intuitively, you'd said, it seems like, this next thing for you is going to be about acceptance or letting go of something or surrender. And so we said, okay, great. And, we kind of parked that and off I went on holidays. And the first 3 days of these holidays was punctuated by fairly major challenges, one after the other, and completely unrelated. The first one was some problems with some government officials in Greece. The second was, I can't even remember. There was something happening, kind of with the family, and maybe it was lost luggage or something. And we thought we'd move past that. And on the third day, we hired a car and said, let's put all of those problems behind us. We're going to hire a car. We're going to go on a holiday, kind of up the coast and go driving and see, this beautiful country. And 20 minutes into the drive, the car breaks down. And it happens to be the last hire car in that part of Greece. They can't change it. They said they would fix it in an hour, and actually, no, they called back and said, we can't fix it at all. You're just going to have to do without a hire car. And I remember vividly, I'm walking down this little dusty lane away from the car to where my family were waiting, sort of on the beach. And I'm going, so what's the lesson here? Whoa, damn it, what is it that I'm supposed to come up with? And somewhere in that dialogue, this idea of not always needing to be prepared for everything came up. And I guess one of the things that I had previously, adopted, prided myself on was, I'm the man in a crisis. If there's something that is not going right,
you're the problem solver.
I can jump in. Yeah, I can fix it. I can bring people together. We can work out a path forward. And in our conversation, I referred to that as the Boy Scout mode, and I was a Boy Scout, so part of it's there. Their motto is be prepared, and I was the be prepared guy. And one of the things that did was it always meant that I had this radar on that said, where is the next problem coming from? Where is, it could be a beautiful day, but where are the dark clouds on the horizon? And what occurred to me was that in always being on the lookout for the next problem so that I could be prepared for it, it actually robbed me of, just the enjoyment of where I was and the ability to, kind of live and experience, all of that. And so at that point, on that holiday, I said, okay, well, I'm going to surrender the need to be prepared. And actually, I a little bit of self-talk, I said, we were sailing. So, okay, so I've done a lot of sailing. I actually don't need to be prepared for sailing. If there is some issue that crops up, I have enough experience to draw on that I can just, reach into the bag and pull it out and deal with it at the day. But don't live, kind of with one hand in the bag, ready to pull out the tools. Just in a beautiful place, let's just enjoy it and relax and have a great holiday. And it was that moment that the rest of the holiday took on this completely different shape. And I actually had the best sailing trip on that, that holiday that I've ever had. And so I, brought that back and shared the story with you.
And that's why I wanted you to share it, because I think it's so descriptive of what we do in our everyday life. Is we're preparing for that next thing that's got to come around the corner and surprise us. And really, we miss out on the moments.
Completely.
Because of that.
Yeah.
So to wrap this up a little bit, what is it that you would say to people listening?
Yeah.
Who needs to do Unlock Your Power program? Like, what do you see as the function of this program for others?
Sure. Well, the thing that I see when I talk to other people, or I recognise, kind of, where they are, is they're kind of fighting against life a little bit. Everything is a struggle, or they're, like things aren't going well, and their response to that is to manage it more or to fight harder. And sometimes, you hear people talk about leaning into the problem, and there's this determination. And those are all good qualities, in their place. But probably the biggest thing that I learned through this process is you actually don't have to fight against life.
Well, that's such a quote. I'm going to be quoting that one.
when you are where you're meant to be and living, kind of in whatever is in alignment for you, then actually life just unfolds very naturally, as sure as the sun sets and the sun rises.
Yeah.
And so, I see it often with business owners and colleagues, and they're sold on this management mindset that says we must plan and control and drive everything. And instead, what I've discovered that at least works for me is it's okay to set an intent, and I do this every day. I have a daily intent, but part of that intent is to also just be open to kind of the gift of the day. And if there's something else that turns up which is different to what I'd intended, then great, that's for a reason. And I just go with it.
Yeah, awesome. I really appreciate the fact that you've been willing to do this interview, because it's so awesome to have someone who comes with the background that you come with, to recognise that there's still more to learn and there's still more expansion in everything we already know.
Yeah, completely. I think one of the big challenges for us, kind of generally, in the world is we try to compartmentalise our lives. There's our work self and there's our home self and our social self. And, I'm pretty sure that when life was designed, it was never designed like that.
It just was life.
Yeah. And it needs to be. So, all of these things that we get taught, and all of these show reels that we see on Facebook about how successful people are and how easy their overnight success is, we're really setting ourselves up for failure. If we try to shoot for that, we have to just be authentic to ourselves.
Yeah.
And get out of our own way.
Yeah, well, you're such a great representation of that, and this is why I love having conversations with you, because you remind me about those things that I need to still take care of as well in our conversation.
We have to remind ourselves.
Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you all soon.